Renata, aka hey, it's your girl Carla Renata, aka the Curvy Film Critic. Welcome back to another episode of the Curvy Film Critic with Carla Renata. If this is your first time joining me, please give me a thumbs up if you were on YouTube to let me know that you were here. Subscribe to the bell. Subscribe to the channel. Click that bell for notifications. If you are on Facebook Live or any other social media platforms, please bring your way on over here and subscribe to the channel. You never know what we might be talking about and what we're doing. Hello, Kenneth Williams. It's good to see you as well. Thank you for stopping in and saying hello. So today we have a big, huge slam-packed show for y'all. I have a slam-packed show for y'all. So this is a situation. I usually talk about what I did the week before, and then I get into my reviews and my interviews. And today we have a bunch of interviews. I have the Academy Award-winning director, activist, mother, actress, filmmaker, Lee Grant. I have her with us today. I have Augustine Frizzell, who you guys might know from HBO's Euphoria. She directed a lot of those episodes. She's over here talking about The Last Letter from Your Lover on Netflix. And so is Jojo Moyes, who wrote the book, The Letter from Your Last Lover. Yeah, I got that right. And then I also have Reid Miller from the film Joe Bell that stars Mark Wahlberg. So those are the interviews. And then I have reviews of Through Your Eyes on HBO Max and Jolt. All right, so let's get right into it with my week. So this is what happened with my week. I basically, I told y'all I was doing the Naleep Media Festival. And so I did that, and that happened this week, and it was so great. I had a great time. But before I get into that, let me say hi to my boy, Brandon. Hi, Brandon. I love you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for popping in. Always good to see you. So I moderated a panel at the Naleep Media Summit, and they were kind enough to give me this, or post this, I should say, about me. It was a quote from something that I said, and I said, being Latinx or BIPOC isn't just one thing, and it doesn't look like one thing. There are many different cultures within all of these communities that we see in film. And I also this week did a panel with these filmmakers, Gray Drake, Sharon Nicole in the middle, who moderated, Wilson Morales, and Kevin McCarthy. We were part of a panel called Let's Get Critical, the Scenes That Make the Movies at the Lakefront Film Festival. And we basically picked a film. We talked about our favorite scene from that film, and then we dissected it amongst ourselves. I also moderated, I've been telling y'all, I've been moderating 5,000 panels for the Bentonville Film Festival, which is coming up. It's coming up in the beginning of August, first week of August. And that film festival is curated by the wonderful Gina Davis. But I was a moderator for a bunch of films, including one film called Uprooted, The Journey of Jazz Dance. And I did another one called I'm Fine, Thanks for Asking, which won the jury prize at the South by Southwest Film Festival. So I always like to tell you guys what I was up to the week before so that, you can take that journey with me and let you know what's going to be happening next week. Oh, I also attended what else did I do? Oh, I got a preview of Dune. I almost forgot about that. I got a preview of Dune and Jungle Cruise. So Jungle Cruise is dropping this week on July 30th. And I got a sneak preview, 10 minutes of the new Dune movie, which stars Jason Momoa, Javier Bardem, Timothée Chalamet, and my girl Zendaya. So I had to, tell y'all about that and what that entails. So that was my week. I'm going to skip around the curve today because we have so many interviews and so many things to get into that I don't want to waste you guys' time and take up too much of your time on a Sunday. That's how I roll. So what I want to get into right now is this interview with my boy Reid Bell. That's him with blonde hair. And in the movie Joe Bell, he's got Mark Wahlberg behind him, who plays his father. This is based on a true story of Joe and Jaden Bell. Jaden was gay. He was being bullied for being gay. His father was the last of the rednecks. And when Jaden committed suicide, or took his life by suicide, I should say, his father, Joe Bell, decided to walk across the country in honor of his son to bring some light to bullying and, especially bullying of people that are different, like Jaden was. Unfortunately, Joe Bell, in the course of that walk, lost his life. So neither Joe nor Jaden Bell are here with us, but they have this film that lives on in perpetuity telling their story. And it's a very powerful story. So without further ado, take a look and a listen to this really fun interview with Reid Bell from Joe Bell. I'm sorry, with Reid Miller from Joe Bell. Hey, Reid.
Hi, how are you?
I am wonderful now that I'm talking to you, dude. When I saw your performance, and I know you've heard this like a bazillion times more, so you about to hear it a bazillion and one. But when I saw your performance in Joe Bell, I can't even remember or if I ever saw a performance like that in my life. It was spectacular. So let me get that out of the way.
Thank you.
And earlier this week, I was watching the Tamron Hall show, and she did a piece about this young lady named Giovanni Smith, who's here in California, who was 15 years old. She loved softball, and she took her life because she couldn't deal with the loneliness that came with the pandemic, right? And this is what Jaden's dealing with in Joe Bell. So I say all of that to say, what was it about Jaden, his situation, and the heartbreak that his parents experienced, that he experiences, that inspired you to take on this role?
For me, it, growing up in a small town, feeling very isolated, feeling very alone, I understood that to a degree. I don't think it would be fair for me to say that I, completely understood his experience. I don't think anyone completely understand his experience, nor mine, nor anyone else's, other than their own. So what inspired me was just knowing that we had that in common, was knowing that we were just two people who felt misunderstood. And I wanted to use this opportunity to not only tell a version of my story a little bit, but to have the honor to share his legacy with the world, because not enough people know about this story. I mean, I heard very little about it because I was also very young when it happened. But even now, when people ask me about the film and I tell them it's based on a true story, they're always shocked to hear it. So I'm hoping that, this finally getting out there, being in theaters, people being able to see it will finally spread not just Jaden's legacy, but Joe's legacy as well in his walk for change.
Yeah, absolutely. I was shocked to hear about the story as well. What would you do as someone who has experienced a little bit of maybe some bullying or cyberbullying or loneliness? What would you do for someone that you loved and lost to honor them the way that Joe honored Jaden?
I think it would just be getting the word out there, like Joe did. I mean, Joe, at the time, I don't think the internet was as powerful of a medium as it is now. It was around, but the world is dominated by the internet now. And I feel like if something like that were to happen, which of course I hope never does, it would just be using every available resource to get that out there, to let people know this is still happening. There are a lot of people who I think live in a little bit of a bubble, in a self-made bubble, because it's easier to just not think about it than to realize it's happening all the time. And I hope this movie pops that bubble.
I'm sure it will. And let me just say this on my way out. You heard it right here, right now. And I don't know if somebody else said this to you or not, but I'm saying it to you. You gonna get that Oscar nomination, brother. And when you do, I'm gonna need you to thank the curvy film critic, okay?
Absolutely. I'm gonna say you predicted it. And I hope so. Thank you.
No, I know so. And I'm never wrong. Anybody that's been nominated can tell you I call it every single time.
Well,
but
thank you.
Yes. But having said that, thank you, Jaden. Look at that. See, I'm calling you by the boy's name. Thank you, Reid. I appreciate you so much for taking time. I really enjoyed talking to Reid. He's lovely. And when I tell y'all, he is crushing it in Joe Bell. he is crushing it. So if you haven't seen Joe Bell, or you were kind of on the fence about it and you don't know if you want to see it, I'm telling you right now, you need to check out the film. Reid Miller, Connie Britton, and Mark Wahlberg are absolutely fantastic in this film. And if nothing else, go see it just to support those that are being bullied, because that money, I'm sure, from the film will be, I'm sure some proceeds from the film will be donated or something along those lines. But if nothing else, it just sheds a spotlight on a very serious problem that we have among our youth. So again, that's Reid Miller, who is starring in Joe Bell. Now, my producer, Mac, always laughs because every time I do an interview, somebody always says, "Oh my God, I love your room. I like your set." So I did a whole little compilation of people just saying that. So here it is.
I immediately feel like so much more like character, like I feel so much more alive seeing the setup, your setup. It's like, it's usually so gray. I'm about to start dancing.
I like your background. It's very nice.
Gorgeous. You know I love a little pink situation, and I see that in the background. You've got the sea up. I'm like, this. Look at my little display here. I'm really pleased with that. Thank you.
I'm doing good. I love your space.
Thank you, darling. I love my space too.
I love your room. I love looking in background there. That's awesome.
Oh my girl, you got the tie-dye on, you got the fuzzy chair. I love your setup. It looks great. I wish I was hugging you in person, but it's good to see you. I love that.
Thank you, baby. I love it too. I thought that was funny, and it would just break up the monotony of me talking about movies and talking to people. So again, I want to thank everybody and anybody who's always looked over my shoulder at my fuzzy chair, my fuzzy pillows, my little curvy critic signs above and behind me, and my Malcolm X picture over there. So, all right, on with the show. I saw a movie called Jolt, and it stars Kate Beckinsale. It stars Kate Beckinsale, Bobby Cannavale, Laverne Cox, and Stanley Tucci. Y'all, when I tell you this particular movie, it's a lot. Like, I love Kate Beckinsale, and I really, 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 really wanted it to be fantabulous. But this is what I have to say about Jolt. All right. So it's directed by Tanya Wexler. I love Tanya Wexler. I'm a big fan of her work. I really do love her work. I mean, she did this movie called Buffalo a couple of years ago. And so she has a tendency to gravitate and love films that are a little off kilter, that have kind of like a slightly crazy, sarcastic edge to them. So I was there for all of that. So it's directed by her. It's written by Scott Basha. And I told you who was starring. This is my problem with it. It's extremely violent. Of course, it's going to be violent when you have a lot of action stuff, right? It's going to be violent, but it's like crazy violent. The stunts are great. Having said that, the stunts are really great. There's this one stunt in particular where Kate Beckinsale is walking upside down, which is making it indicative of her life being turned upside down by her lover being killed, which is the impetus and the through line of the film. But what I do love about the film, in addition to the great cinematography, the crazy wackadoodle stunts, is I love the fact that Scott shows within the script through Kate Beckinsale's character, Lindy, that women can be vulnerable but still kick ass. But in general, this felt like a low rent Hulk that, tie-dyed itself with Atomic Blonde, and it's just really low voltage for me. I'm sorry, I love y'all, but yeah, I couldn't get with Jolt. So that's on Amazon Prime, and I'm sorry I didn't like it. And you know how much it pains me to say that somebody's stuff isn't good. I really hate doing that. I really, really hate doing that. But having said that, it is what it is. All right, so let me give you this interview with Miss Jojo Moyes. Jojo wrote the book, The Last Letter from Your Lover. Is streaming on Netflix. I reviewed it last week, so you can refer back to that tape to see that. But I did talk about the film then. And what I really loved about what Jojo said, when I asked her how she came up with the premise for this film, I'm not even gonna tell you. I'm just gonna let you watch it and see what she said. This is Jojo Moyes from The Last Letter from Your Lover. Hey, Jojo.
I'm loving your background. I feel like
Thank
it's
you.
totally in keeping with this movie.
Thank you. I love your background too. It's nice and clean and simple. Love it, love it, love it. I love the movie. I love the way that there's those two storylines interweaving, and it reminds me of two different movies that I saw a long time ago. It's like a mix of Backstreet mixed with Message in a Bottle. Are you familiar with Backstreet?
I'm not familiar with Backstreet, but I know Message in a Bottle. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Backstreet is an old movie with Susan Hayward. Check it out. You'll see exactly what I mean, except in your book, it's flip-flopped. The premise is flip-flopped. But let's just talk about that for a second. What inspired this story? Because I love the fact that you have like this romantic comedy happening over here, and then like this torrid extramarital affair happening on the other side.
Well, I'm going to be honest and say it's because I'm really nosy that I got this story. Because I was eavesdropping in a bar on a bunch of women who were trying to decipher a text message from a guy. And you know how it is. You're like, what are they saying? And it turns out that all that was on this text message was later X. And these girls must have picked it apart for like half an hour. And it got me thinking about communication. Like, we live in this age of communication, and yet anybody who is single will tell you the WhatsApps, the emojis, the emails, the text messages, the booty calls, nothing is clear anymore. Like, does he like me? Does he not like me? Should the later have been later this week, later next month? Should it have had a big X? Should it have a small X? And I got to thinking about how my mom's generation, how my grandmother's generation, if a guy liked you, or if you liked a guy, you would turn up at their house, you would call, or you would write a letter. And you cannot doubt, if someone takes the trouble to write a letter, that means they like you. No one's going to waste half an hour on a stamp.
Right?
A trip to the mailbox if they're not 100% keen. And so I thought it was really interesting that we have all this choice now. Women are supposedly so liberated, and we have all these options. And yet, are we happier? I don't know.
I love that. It started from you being nosy. I love the fact that you were like, yeah, it started from me just being nosy. Yeah. What was the impetus in the book for using, because I think maybe once you see them use their names at the end of the letter and then it switches to the initials. Is that from the text message that you saw too?
No, that was just because I just love the idea of them having names for each other. And Boot, Anthony's Boot, is basically it's a joke play on the book Scoop by Evelyn Waugh. And I just thought, I love the fact that when you meet her and she has no memory of this man, how on earth are you going to work out who B is? It's impossible. So I just added to the mystery.
I'm glad that you said it in the 60s, but why the 60s? You could have put it in any different era ever, but the 60s is so great because of the styles and the way that Shailene got to, wear the pillbox hats and wear the Jackie O flipped hair and all that. So I just want to know why you chose the 60s.
Well, it was really because society changed so dramatically at that point. You had the 50s where it was a nuclear family and the wife stayed home and the husband did this and everybody wore a girdle and, and now you got into the 60s and half of the society was suddenly going, hang on, there's sexual liberation, there's contraceptives, there's music, there's pop music, there's going out and short skirts. And there's still a load of people going, that's not right. And I love that sense of the tension between two ways of doing things, which I think always exists, but in the 60s seemed to exist much more strongly.
Well, I didn't get a chance to read the book before I saw this movie, but I'm definitely going to read it now. I'm an avid reader. I have books for days. I have a whole library. My mother's like, are you going to get rid of those books? I'm like, no. But I am. I'm happy to add your book to that collection. Thank you so much, Jojo, for your time today. It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope we get the opportunity again sometime soon.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
So I know Jojo has a lot of fans, and I don't know why I keep saying Jojo Moyes, but it's Jojo Moyes. Jojo Moyes, right? And her book is called The Last Letter from Your Lover. That film is streaming on Netflix right now. But before I move any further, I let y'all talk to Jojo. or let y'all hear from Jojo. And now I'm going to let you hear from Augustine Frizzell, who is the director. And like I said in the intro, people know her from HBO's Euphoria. So take a look and a listen to my interview with Augustine Frizzell, the director of The Last Letter from Your Lover. So how did you discover Jojo's book?
So I actually got sent the script first by Blueprint Pictures, Pete Cheney, and my producers, and read the script, loved it, just needed to do it, and then found out it was a book, read the book. My mind was blown. I was like, how have I never heard of this author? She's brilliant. And then just started reading her books, and I met her, and she was incredible, so smart and talented. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got to know Jojo.
And I want to talk a little bit about the music soundtrack because it takes place in the 60s. There's so many different 60s songs and artists that you could have used that are instantly recognizable, but you kind of veered away from that. So I just want to talk a little bit about your collab with the composing department to settle on what type of music to use for this piece, because it flips flops between 1965 and present day.
Yeah. So all the songs just, like when I got the script and I started breaking it down, and anytime I'm working on any project, I start with a playlist and I just go through, I love music. I have, I use Spotify. Just, it's always like discovery. I get really, I go deep into deep dives in music, and I'm looking at albums and following threads. And so that's kind of how it happened. And anytime I do that, I pull songs that, like the Doris Troy song, like that's something that I'd never heard and then just came across. I'm like, oh my God, this song's amazing. And so you set that aside and you're like, sometime I'm going to use that song. It's really good. And so I have kind of a database of songs that may not be the most popular song, but just feel so emotionally right, for various times. And so that's kind of how it started. And then my composer, Daniel Hart, he's just brilliant. I've known him for years. He's been my husband's composer. And he just, we went back and forth with the score, and I told him I wanted something that didn't feel like wallpaper, that had more of like a hand in telling the story. And he just nailed it. It was amazing.
Yeah, he totally did. I was all into that score. I'm like, oh, that music. Sometimes it would take me out. I had to rewind and go, oh, I love that. Isn't that terrible? It's terrible and great all at the same time.
Yeah.
What was the decision to cast completely different actors as B and J toward the latter part of the film instead of just aging up Callum and Shailene?
So we had a lot of discussions about it, actually. We went back and forth. We met with, makeup designers and talked about computer, like changing them with the computer. And at the end of the day, we saw a couple of things. We saw an opportunity to work with these two older actors that are just, incredible and brought their own story to this. And I thought that was special and something that was an opportunity, to work with two incredible new actors. And then also sometimes I just didn't want the makeup or the dissection of the makeup to become the focus of the story. I just wanted you to just get lost in who these people were, just extend your imagination and not worry about like, oh, is the makeup good enough? How do they look? Do you see the seams? So yeah.
I love that. It took me a minute to figure out that it wasn't them, because the older gentleman really looks a lot like Callum. He looks so much like Callum that I thought, is that Callum? And then it took me a minute to figure it out. So that was a beautiful thing. Well, Augustine, that is my time. It was so lovely to talk to you. I hope that we get the opportunity to do it again real soon.
Me too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Augustine was a hoot. Jojo was a hoot. If you haven't seen The Last Letter from Your Lover on Netflix, please check it out. I want to talk about a film that is streaming on HBO Max called Through Our Eyes. And it's a really special film because it's produced by the Sesame Workshop and HBO Max. It is a 4-part docu-series that is dealing with helping to create a cinematic blueprint for kids 9 and older, along with their parents, through mental wellness after having their families displaced by natural disasters or being homeless, or parents that have been incarcerated. There are 4 30-minute documentaries. So it's 4 parts. So it'll take you 2 hours max to watch it. It's directed by a plethora of award-winning and or nominated directors. And I watched it, and I'm telling you right now, it's one of those things that it's going to be very helpful to people that have been displaced by a hurricane or displaced because their parents couldn't get their bills together to pay their rent and they're homeless due to no fault of their own. And sometimes children think that maybe the circumstances that they're in that are less than stellar are because of them. This is a great film to show them that it's nothing that they did, it's nothing that they said that put the family in those circumstances. And it shows them how to stay strong, how to stay vigilant, and how to stay sane and mentally healthy through it all. Again, it's called Through Our Eyes, and it's streaming on HBO Max. Now, let me talk about my girl, Lee Grant, because she's a bad mama jamma. I sat down and I talked to her. We talked for nearly an hour, but I'm giving you a 10-minute excerpt of that conversation. She is everything and then some. She is a director. She's a mother. She's an activist. She's a Blacklist survivor. She's the first female director to be honored by the DGA. She has 2 daughters, one of which is Dinah Manoff, who was in You Ought to Be in Pictures on Broadway and in the film version and on the Empty Nest sitcom. And she was Marty in Grease. Her daughter, Dinah Manoff, was Marty in Grease. And so we sat down and we talked about the re-release of her 20th Century Woman, the documentary films of Lee Grant. We sat down and we had a nice little conversation about that, some of the documentaries, her daughter, a bunch of other things. The full version of this interview is on my YouTube channel under the one-on-one interview section. But until then, check out this conversation between myself and Academy Award winner Lee Grant. You are an activist, you're an actor, you're a mom, you're a director, you are so many things. But there was also a period in your career where you were blacklisted for 12 years. What was it exactly that happened that instituted that blacklist? And why did it last for why did it last for 12 years?
It's very hard to say looking back on it, but it was the communist threat. It was the communist threat. And it happened in the 50s, in the 1950s, that all of the unions were formed by people who believed in communism. I mean, all the guilds, all the unions. And then they stopped believing in communism, but the unions were there nevertheless because for some reason, these were the people who helped to form the unions. And then there was a falling out after World War II with Stalin. And there were still so many artists, actors, musicians, writers, who had grown up on the union movement and who still believed in that kind of communism, union communism. What they didn't find out till after the whole blacklist was over in 1964 was that Stalin was a butcher, that Stalin sent artists away to be imprisoned, that he killed them, that all of these incredible writers and actors who lost their work for all those years and who never were able to climb back again had faith in a false idol. And so, they were punished not only by this government for believing in what they thought was a great society, but they were punished when they learned, when Stalin was dead and Khrushchev took over, that Khrushchev told the world that Stalin had been responsible for the deaths of so many artists.
To this, so you have a documentary collection that we're celebrating right now, 20th Century Woman, the documentary films of Lee Grant. a father, a son, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that centers around your friends, Kirk and Michael Douglas. Was that a love letter for you to them?
Oh, such a love letter. He was a star at a time when stars were stars.
Yes, ma'am.
He was, and such a dynamic guy, and his making it as an actor out of this tiny town where his father sold old clothes and went around with a donkey. And I mean, for that boy to have made it as an actor and gone to Hollywood was such an extraordinary lifeline. And so much later on, Michael Douglas was a friend of my husband's, Joey Fury, who was a producer of all the documentaries that I did. Anyway, they were two guys hanging out together, smoking, drinking, never thinking.
I got you.
The day. And of course, they all went through this, kind of life swings and turns together. And I had made a lot of, really, I love them, great documentaries. And so they said, do one on us. And so we did. And it was a journey. It was a journey for them. And of course, it was a journey for me. I just marvel at my fortune, at my luck to be, to be the grandmother and the mother of the family that I have. I'm a lucky little old lady, let me tell you.
You may be lucky and you may be a lady, but there's nothing old about you. Let's just put that out there, okay? There is nothing old about Miss Lee Grant. You were bad then, you were bad in the middle, and you just is badder now. Let's just put that out there.
Don't tell how bad I am. Don't you tell.
And my mind is boggled over the things that are happening in 1985 that are still happening in 2021. Farmers are being displaced out of their homes. Why are we living in a country where the average person can't even afford to pay their rent, let alone a mortgage? Can't nobody pay no mortgage on $7 an hour?
I was open-mouthed making that documentary, and especially with the farmers who were trying to get some of their money back from the bank, if you remember, where their money was put in a bank that was supposed to be for them. It was supposed to be a farmer's bank, and they withheld the money from the farmers who were going out of business unless they got their money back. I mean, the viciousness, the callousness of the people around them who were putting these farmers down and out of business. I felt lucky. I felt fortunate that we had a camera there, that we had a visual of what these people were being put through, and that it would be history, that they couldn't hide it, that you could see what they were being forced to do and leaving homes that they had been in for 100 years. I mean, it was despicable.
To date, is that still true? Would you still say yes to everything?
Well, I was hungry. You know, when somebody takes 12 years of your life and says you can't work in film, you can't work in television, which is what happened to me in the 50s, then any offer that comes to act, you know, and then later to direct was, you know, I was starving. I had my appetite for work was just huge. I couldn't, you know, you want to do this? Yes. You want to do that? Yes. More. You know, give it to me. So I did, I said yes to everything, and some of it was gorgeous and wonderful, and some of it was tacky, but I didn't care. I just wanted to work. That's all.
I love that. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you can be funny. I saw you in Divorce American Style too. I've told you, I've seen your stuff.
Yes, you have.
I've seen your stuff. I know all about you, Miss Lee Grant. Yes, I do.
Don't tell. Don't tell.
I'm not gonna tell nobody. I'm not gonna tell nobody.
Okay, don't tell.
You take nothing for granted and you go full throttle, or you're not gonna go at all. Is that right? And am I right in that assessment? You want to tell me what Dinah's up to? You said she wrote a book, right?
The talent that Dinah has is so enormous in this book. It's so funny. It's so delicious. It's so terrible. I as her mother, I am stunned by this book and by her talent. I'm telling you, this book is amazing. What a woman Dinah is. My hat's off. So much fun meeting you. You're adorable, and I really enjoyed you.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I try to make it enjoyable. I love talking to you. I love talking to you. I hope that we have an opportunity to do it again. I'm such a fan, and I'm so enthralled by everything that you do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Bye now.
And you're my cutie pie.
Oh. I was so excited to talk to her. You have no idea. And her people reached out to me and asked me if I would speak to her. But I want to share a couple of things with you before we sign off. Did you know that Miss Lee Grant is one of 25 actresses to have won an Academy Award for their performance in a comedy? She's also one of 22 Oscar-winning actresses that have been born in the state of New York. Her autobiography is called I Said Yes to Everything. So if you haven't read that, if you haven't heard of it, run out and get that. Her daughter, Dinah Manoff, has that book. We showed it in the clip. Check that out. And I wanted to share a couple of other things with you. The House of Un-American Activities Committee is who blacklisted her back in the day. It took her 12 years to get back in the saddle, but when she did a film called Shampoo with Warren Beatty. She won the Oscar for that. She got nominations for The Landlord, Village of the Damned, and she also has this fall, she has an upcoming music film called Killian and the Comeback Kids. She has a slight, I think, VO cameo in that. You can check out 20th Century Woman, the documentary films of Lee Grant, at hoperunshighfilms.com. hoperunshighfilms.com. Miss Grant, well, she would kill me if I called her Miss Grant because I asked her that. Lee, if you are watching this, which I'm sure you are, thank you so much for doing this with me. I had the time of my life. I don't even have words for it. But hold up. Wait a minute. Next week, I got a treat for y'all. You know who it is? I'm about to show you who it is. Is this dude right here? Oh, it's Matt Damon, honey. I sat down and I talked to Matt Damon. I almost lost my last bit of good sense when I talked to him. I also spoke with Tom McCarthy, who is the director of Stillwater. And if that weren't enough, I talked with their leading lady, Miss Camille Cotton. Camille's interview will air on my YouTube channel on July 27th. Tom's will air on July 28th. And I will have, who did I say? Matt Damon. I will have him here next week for the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. So having said that, y'all, thank you so much once again for joining me for this trip down this episode 173 of the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. If this is your first time joining me, please give me a big old thumbs up to let me know you were here. Click that bell for notifications and please subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. So until the next time, child, in California, we've got the COVID thing happening again. So until the next time, wash your hands, keep your social distancing going, because I'm not trying to be in the COVID pandemic for the rest of my life, okay? But until then, and I'll see you next week with Matt Damon. Love, peace, and hair grease. I'll see you later. Bye.